In the heart of Europe, an unforeseen conflict rages on, the Russia-Ukraine war, a battle that has reshaped the geopolitical landscape. But to fully comprehend the gravity of this situation, we need to journey back to its inception. It all began with a pen stroke, a political maneuver that would morph into a full-blown conflict. In 2014, the world watched as the Crimean Peninsula, a region known for its sandy beaches, strategic ports, and rich history, was annexed by Russia from Ukraine. This move, deemed illegal by the international community, ignited the spark that would lead to the ongoing war. Following this controversial annexation, the situation escalated quickly. Eastern Ukraine, home to a significant Russian-speaking population, became a hotbed for tension. A series of pro-Russian rebellions erupted, shaking the region and further straining relations between Russia and Ukraine. These rebellions were not just mere protests, they were the first volleys in what would evolve into a full-scale war. The battles that ensued were not confined to the battlefield. They spilled over into the realm of geopolitics, with nations around the world being drawn into the fray. The world has seen the war through the lens of diplomacy, economic sanctions, and military confrontations. The Russia-Ukraine war, once a regional conflict, had now become a global concern. This war, however, is not merely a clash of armies or a game of political chess. It's a war that has altered lives, shaped nations, and redefined international relations. It's a war that has seen cities reduced to rubble, families torn apart, and a region's future hanging in the balance. It's a war that has brought the world to the brink, testing the limits of diplomacy and international law. As the world watches, the stakes continue to rise, with each skirmish, each diplomatic standoff, and each casualty. The unseen war in the heart of Europe continues to rage on, its impact reverberating far beyond its borders. Beyond the headlines and political posturing, the human cost of the Russia-Ukraine war is staggering. As we delve deeper into the realities on the ground, the vast scope of the humanitarian crisis becomes painfully clear. This isn't a mere game of chess played on a global stage, but a heart-wrenching saga of human lives caught in the throes of a brutal conflict. Homes have been obliterated, neighborhoods ravaged, and countless lives disrupted. The displacement of people from their homes and communities has reached unprecedented levels. Entire generations have been uprooted, their futures hanging in the balance as they are forced to navigate the harsh realities of life as refugees. The economic impact on the region is another facet of the human cost that cannot be overlooked. Once thriving markets have been reduced to rubble, the livelihoods of millions devastated. The echo of bustling trade has been replaced by the deafening silence of abandoned streets. The economic fabric of the region has been torn apart, the ripple effects of which will be felt for decades to come. But perhaps the most tragic element of this crisis is the toll it has taken on the civilian population. Men, women, and children who once led ordinary lives find themselves caught in the crossfire of a conflict they did not choose. The everyday sounds of laughter and chatter have been overshadowed by the roar of artillery and the cries of the distressed. Schools have been transformed into shelters, playgrounds into makeshift hospitals. The innocence of childhood has been replaced by the harsh lessons of war. The psychological impact on these civilians is immeasurable. The trauma of war, the loss of loved ones, the constant fear and uncertainty, these are the unseen wounds that may never fully heal. The human spirit is resilient, but it is not invincible. In the end, it is not the politicians or the military generals who suffer most, but the innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. In this era of globalization, no conflict exists in isolation. The Russia-Ukraine war has elicited a global response, both politically and socially. As the echoes of warfare reverberate across borders, the international community has been compelled to respond, each nation in its own way. The most prominent form of this response has been the widespread sanctions levied against Russia. Nations near and far have sought to exert pressure on the Kremlin, hoping to influence the course of the conflict without direct military intervention. Sanctions have spanned a broad spectrum, from individual designations to sector-wide embargoes. These measures have targeted Russia's financial, energy, and defense sectors, attempting to hit where it hurts the most, the economy. The aim is clear: to create a cost for aggression, a deterrent for further escalation. On the other hand, support for Ukraine has been manifested in various shapes and forms. From humanitarian aid, addressing the immediate needs of the war-stricken populace, to military aid aimed at strengthening Ukraine's defensive capabilities. the world has rallied around Ukraine in a show of solidarity. This conflict has also left an indelible mark on global politics, reshaping alliances and redefining geopolitical realities. It has stirred debates around security and sovereignty, around democracy and despotism. It has compelled nations to reassess their stance, to choose sides, to act or abstain. Yet the response has been far from uniform. The world is divided not just over the question of who is right or wrong, but over how to respond, how to resolve, how to rebuild. Some nations call for dialogue, others demand decisive action. Some advocate for patience, others press for urgency. As the world grapples with this ongoing conflict, the question remains, what will it take to bring peace to Ukraine? As we look to the future, the path forward for Russia and Ukraine remains uncertain. The landscape is filled with both challenges and opportunities as the world watches and waits. The resolution of this conflict hinges on diplomatic efforts and peace negotiations. The importance of dialogue cannot be overstated. It is through conversations, not battles, that lasting peace can be forged. Both sides must come to the table, willing to compromise and find a middle ground. This war, however, will leave deep imprints not just on the region but on the global stage. It will shape future policies, influence international relations, and potentially alter the course of global politics. The long-term impacts are hard to predict, but they are inevitable. This conflict may well serve as a lesson in the power of diplomacy over force, the resilience of people in the face of adversity, and the profound interconnectedness of our world. While the outcome of this conflict is uncertain, one thing is clear: the Russia-Ukraine war will leave a lasting legacy on the world stage.